Welcome to Cloverfield Park, the most wonderful patch of green in the whole wide world. On this perfectly sunny morning, birds were singing, butterflies were dancing, and every flower was showing off its brightest bloom. It was, without a shadow of a doubt, the absolute best day to be outside. And two best friends had already decided today would be the most perfect picnic day ever. Dot was already waiting at her front door, purple bow perfectly tied, tiny glasses polished, and a sensible small bag packed beside her. She watched Pip arrive, eventually, after his third loop around the same oak tree. "You walked in a circle twice," she said flatly. Pip pointed at her triumphantly. "But I found a 4-leaf clover." He held up what was very obviously a regular 3-leaf clover. Dot sighed, but smiled. Together, Pip and Dot marched to the very center of the meadow, which Pip had officially declared the world's greatest picnic spot. He spread out a red checkered blanket with dramatic flair, flipping it into the air and somehow wrapping it around his own head. Dot unwrapped him patiently, smoothed out the blanket, and set everything up neatly. For one beautiful, peaceful moment, everything was absolutely, completely, wonderfully perfect. Then, from somewhere past the tall sunflowers at the meadow's edge, came a tiny sound. A sort of whooshing giggle. Pip looked up from his sandwich. Dot peered over her lemonade cup. Skimming across the grass like a skipping stone was a little swirling blue whirlwind with the most mischievous pair of googly eyes anyone had ever seen. It paused. It seemed to notice them. Then it absolutely zoomed straight toward their picnic blanket at full speed. Whoosh! Well, the mischievous wind spirit spun straight through the picnic like a miniature cyclone of joy. Sandwiches flew into the air. Lemonade cups spun like tiny tops. The checkered blanket rippled up like a flying carpet. Pip leaped after his sandwich with a heroic dive and missed completely, landing face first in the grass. Dot calmly grabbed her lemonade before it could escape, watching everything else go airborne with a very tired expression. Whirl zipped away across the meadow, carrying Pip's favorite acorn butter sandwich high in the air like a tiny trophy. "Come back here," Pip yelled, sprinting after it with his arms stretched wide. Whirl spun in a playful loop, dipping the sandwich just within reach before whisking it away again. Meanwhile, Dot calmly gathered everything she could find, restacking the food with military precision, determined that this picnic would happen, wind spirit or absolutely not. On the far side of the meadow, near the glittering park pond, Bucky the beaver was doing what he did every morning, improving his dam. Bucky's dam did not need improving. It was actually a perfectly good dam. But Bucky could not help himself. He hammered, stacked, and adjusted, wearing his yellow hard hat at an extremely proud angle, whistling cheerfully. He had absolutely no idea that a squirrel, a hedgehog, and a wind spirit were about to become his problem. Whirl came spinning around the pond bend at tremendous speed, still carrying the sandwich, with Pip tumbling along behind. The little wind spirit zoomed directly through Bucky's freshly organized pile of sticks. Crack! Clatter! Splash! Sticks exploded in every direction like a wooden firework. Bucky spun around, yellow hard hat tilting sideways, and stared at the beautiful mess where his organized pile used to be. Then he looked at Pip, who had just arrived, panting. Pip held up both paws in what he hoped was a calming gesture. "Okay, Bucky, I can explain everything," he said, still catching his breath. "There's a wind, but it's alive, and it has eyes, and it stole my sandwich." Bucky stared at him for a very long moment. He adjusted his hard hat. Then he said, with great sincerity, "I also lost a sandwich once. It fell in the pond," Pip blinked. "That's not quite the same." Back at the picnic blanket, Dot had performed a near miracle. Every sandwich was stacked neatly. Every cup was refilled. The blanket was perfectly flat. She stood back, admired her work, and then noticed a pair of googly eyes peeking at her from behind a sunflower. Whirl hovered there, tilting from side to side curiously, almost like a puppy wondering if it was in trouble. Dot slowly took off her glasses, cleaned them, and put them back on. "Interesting," she said. Dot crouched down to Whirl's eye level and spoke in a calm, measured voice. "Hello. My name is Dot. Are you playing with us? Or causing trouble?" Whirl spun in a shy little circle and dropped the sandwich gently at her feet. Dot picked it up and nodded. "Playing? Right. Well, if you want to play with us, that's different than playing us. Do you understand the difference?" Whirl's googly eyes blinked. Then it nodded its tiny swirly body enthusiastically. Pip arrived back at the picnic, with Bucky lumbering along behind him still wearing his yellow hard hat. Both of them stopped dead in their tracks. There was Dot, sitting calmly on the picnic blanket, apparently having a pleasant conversation with the tiny tornado that had wrecked everything. Whirl was spinning gently and making soft whistling sounds. "How are you doing that?" Pip whispered. "Respect and clear communication," Dot said without turning around. Bucky nodded as if this were obvious. And somehow, impossibly, the picnic actually began. Pip, Dot, and Bucky sat on the blanket while Whirl hovered happily above the lemonade jug, occasionally blowing the napkins just enough to make everyone grab them. Bucky ate 4 sandwiches in the time it took Pip to unwrap one. Whirl discovered it absolutely loved the smell of lemonade and kept doing happy little spins over it. For a little while, everything was warm, funny, and perfectly chaotic. After lunch, Pip pulled out the frisbee for some outdoor fun. "Who wants to play?" he announced. Everyone's hand went up, including Whirl, which didn't technically have hands but spun very enthusiastically. Bucky stood up to get ready and there was a horrible crunching sound. The frisbee had been under him the entire time. He lifted it up sadly. It was now perfectly bent into the shape of a taco. Bucky studied it. "It's still beautiful," he said sincerely. Pip was not one to be defeated by a taco-shaped frisbee. He spotted a huge white dandelion puff nearby and had a brand new idea. "Dandelion blowing contest," he declared. "Who can blow their seeds farther than Whirl?" Dot looked skeptical. Bucky looked thrilled. Whirl looked at its own swirling body and seemed to understand this was possibly unfair because it immediately hid behind a blade of grass trying to look innocent. "No cheating, Whirl," Pip warned sternly. Bucky went first. He took the world's deepest breath, puffed out his round cheeks, and blew so hard his hard hat flew clean off his head and the dandelion completely disintegrated in midair. Not one seed went anywhere. They all just exploded into fluff. Dot blew hers with perfect controlled technique, and it sailed elegantly across the meadow. Then Pip blew his, and somehow blew his own scarf into his own face. Whirl hadn't even moved yet. When it was finally Whirl's turn, the little wind spirit stepped up, or rather, spun up, puffed itself as small as it could, and blew the tiniest breath imaginable. But wind spirits can't help themselves. The breath grew and grew. The dandelion seeds shot upward in a magnificent swirling spiral that filled the entire blue sky above them like living confetti. Everyone lay on their backs in the grass staring up at the glittering, spinning cloud of seeds in complete and total awe. The seeds drifted down slowly, landing all across the meadow like soft white snow. Pip caught one on his nose. Dot caught one on her glasses. Bucky let about 40 land on his hard hat and seemed incredibly honored. But then, because this was a magical park and Whirl was not an ordinary wind, something extraordinary began to happen. Tiny yellow dandelions began popping up from the ground one by one, springing up instantly with cheerful little boinging sounds wherever seeds had landed. As the dandelion pop-up show finally slowed down, Dot checked her little wristwatch and her eyes went wide. "Bucky, you're damn. We scattered all your sticks. We need to fix it before the pond overflows at sunset." Bucky looked at the pond. Sure enough, water was beginning to creep over the edges. He clapped his large flat tail on the ground decisively. "Damn team, assemble," he announced. Pip raised his fist. "I have absolutely no damn building skills whatsoever," he said heroically. Just as the sun began painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold, the very last stick clicked into place. The dam held perfectly. The pond settled back behind it with a happy little gurgle. Bucky stood back and looked at the finished dam with glistening eyes. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever built," he whispered. Dot patted his arm. Pip immediately climbed on top of it and slipped straight off into a very shallow muddy puddle. Everyone laughed.